Welcome to episode 49 of the Travel Talk Show, a podcast of Canada Marketing Group and ehCanadaTravel.com. The Travel Talk Show for you newbies out there, for you people who have been hiding in caves and haven't clued into this Canadian content broadcast. We happen every Tuesday at 7 p.m. PST from a secretive base camp somewhere here in beautiful Maple Leaf backcountry of Canada. Big news, bro.
Big news.
Yes.
Love to hear about it.
2 days ago, I got an email in the morning.
Yes.
And it came to me and it said, hey, you brothers of tourism, you guys running that ehCanada gig going on there in deep backwoods Canada, we are going to recognize you on the Global Power Top 100 influencer list.
Ooh,
you know
that
what?
Is so awesome.
I think they got in our green room and had some screech. I do. Seriously. I mean, come on. I know we do have quality guests, and I think we do rock it out on a show, and we do have fun. And I'm a big believer. We could talk serious, but tourism's about having fun, and we can't lose sight of that.
Well, life's about having fun.
See, that's why I keep telling you, you're the smarter one.
Yeah, well, you lead it into. You're 3 years smarter than me. We all know that.
3 years, 3 months. Get it right if you're going to quote numbers like that. Come on. Okay, we got.
That's such an awesome award. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I'm still psyched about it.
You look at the top 10 and it's like surgeon generals and all these people with all these degrees. And here we are, backwoods Canada, brothers of tourism who love this country to death. And the people who live here, and we love supporting the people who live here. And we love supporting people with Canadian content. And that brings us to our guest tonight, Matt.
Good old Matt.
Matt is our guest today. On our special guest is TEDx speaker, community builder, and executive coach to entrepreneurs, Mr. Matt Stewart. Matt, the bearded leader, the bewhiskered one, the brain and the bristly, will be on our show in a few minutes. But first, before we bring on the entrepreneur of entrepreneurs, Matt Stewart, we got to do our little pre-show housekeeping. So my name is Greg Gerard, if you haven't figured that one out yet, since my name's on the screen. I am the co-bro founder of the award-winning ehCanadaTravel.com website and co-bro owner of the ehCanada Marketing Group. Storyteller, adventure seeker on our award-winning blog called Two Brothers, 2 Feet, 2 Cures, 2 Canadian. That's our blog. It's all about that.
And awesome.
Co-bro host with Mr. Good Looking next to me on the Travel Talk Show. So this is the time when I need to pass the baton to the co-bro, hosting brother of brothers, Junior Gerard.
Well, thanks, bro. I am the co-bro owner of ehCanadaTravel.com, the co-host of this Travel Talk Show, which is getting world-renowned recognition, followers from all over, which is simply awesome.
Yeah.
And I am keeper of the code, developer of the programs, and thrilled to be here with you, bro.
I'm thrilled to be here, but not as thrilled as I am to have Matt Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, if I lose you on this show because of internet issues, that's fine. I'm okay with it. No. But if I lose Matt Stewart, I'm going to, that's not a cool thing.
Well, maybe you want to have Matt as your brother instead. I mean, obviously you want to trade him up.
Take me, I'm in.
You trade me away anytime here, is he?
I'm telling you, I love you to death, but hey, man, you ain't no Matt Stewart. Together, we are the brothers of tourism, probably made in the Canadian wilderness with 100% Canadian ingredients. We have maple leaf red blood flowing through our veins and a massive collection of bumps and bruises because we research Canada. We're boots on the ground research team. We are your sourdough cocktail, Newfoundland Screech, and Gimli, Manitoba whiskey guzzling guinea pigs, wildlife whisperers, and bannock munching road tripping Canucks. And we're here with you tonight with Mr. Matt Stewart, Mr. Bearded Leader. This is a live show, so guess what, Call?
What's that, bro?
Stuff happens.
Yes.
If we lose you mighty beautiful looking guests there that are here watching tonight, and if you do watch tomorrow the recorded version, doesn't matter if we lose it there, it's a recorded version, but if we lose you tonight, do change the channel. Keep it right on this ehCanada channel, because we will be right back. We'll log back in. And if you lose our Mr. Bearded Leader, the bewhiskered one, do not worry, he will be right back as well. We'll just hold the show and he'll be right back. So don't change this channel. Our guest tonight works with entrepreneurs in many other sectors of the economy. In most cases, when we talk entrepreneurs, we are talking small business. That's our wheelhouse. And in Canada, small businesses make up 98% of all employer businesses. Not to mention, in our beloved tourism industry, 90%, just over 90% of businesses are small businesses. This man, Mr. Matt Stewart, works with those businesses. Now, we all know, COVID-19 has devastated the entrepreneurial and small business market, but always look on the good side. The good news is that entrepreneurs are fighters. We aren't built like other people. We are special. We are innovative. We do not give up. We take challenges on and we look them straight in the face and we beat them with guidance, with mentors, with connections, and with teamwork. That is the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
The challenges is opportunities attitude.
No matter what, as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure Mr. Matt Stewart will reinforce this because he's got some taglines of his own. We try to be optimistic. There's always a time to be realistic, and I get it. You got to be realistic, but realistic shouldn't be leading to bad thoughts or negativity. You've got to work with what you got, and listening to some of these stats is a little bit shocking, but as you've been on this show many times, you have heard from our guests, and you know what? A lot of our guests have some wickedly positive stories coming out of this terrible, challenging time.
Do they ever?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's been forced with their challenges, and I mean, rise to the occasion.
Yes.
Canadian.
Go ahead.
No, I'm done. It's a Canadian thing.
It is a Canadian thing.
Canadian thing. And don't be pessimistic. That'll go take you in the wrong direction.
No, and we're not big on that. And one thing about our guest tonight, Mr. Bearded Leader Matt Stewart, is he doesn't like excuses, and that just suits me fine.
Yeah.
I am an excuse exologist. I rid you of your excuses. And that's what we need to do. We don't need to have that stuff. Excuses doesn't provide any positive benefit, man.
No. I mean, it's none at all.
No, but
go ahead.
Yeah, but being realistic is, you got to be realistic, so then you can become optimistic. Know what you're playing with, and then become optimistic. So here's something. Close to 1/4 of small businesses with 1 to 19 employees, that's 42.2%, reported revenues were down 40% or more year over year. But there's 58% that aren't reporting that.
Nice.
So why are we looking at the negative when I read stats? All I hear is negative, but I didn't hear anyone come out with 58% aren't recording over 40% losses. But that's not how we're told this story. And I'm going to give you some more here. Close to half businesses with 1 to 4 employees, 47.2%. Around 2/5 of businesses with 5 to 19 employees, 43%. And over a third of businesses with 20 to 99 employees, 34% reported they did not have the ability to take on more debt. Okay. Every one of those, if it was reversed, would have been 60 to 75% have recorded no problem taking on more debt. But that's not how we're hearing it.
Well, yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's
I see where you're going.
You see this? When I was researching this show, so I look smart, I was looking at these things and I said, this is the wrong way of telling the story.
Yeah.
Where's the success stories? The 75% that aren't afraid to take on debt. The 74% that aren't losing money. Where's that story? Where's the resilient story?
You're definitely, I mean, that's a problem with most news. I mean, they don't tell the positive stories. I mean, you need to know, I'm with you, you need to know the downsides, what's happening and who's hurting and stuff. But I mean, you need to know the positive, the good stories, the people that are, succeeding and
Mm-hmm.
overcoming and those are inspirational.
Yep. So I'm continuing my little research here about entrepreneurship, who is in a lot of ways small businesses. And I came across a thing, and this is just blows me away. 6% of businesses with 1 to 4 employees reported they were actually considering bankruptcy. So that means 94% of the businesses out there aren't. You know what? That sounds awesome. Right? So where's
Yeah.
let's be realistic, but why aren't we portraying this information optimistically? Why aren't we saying, why am I not hearing the good news out there of the businesses that have changed their operating manual to accommodate COVID? What about the businesses like ours, which have actually been doing extremely well with being innovative and changing the playbook? Where's these stories?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we got to guess who's going to fill us in on all that. Right?
Yeah.
So it's time to call in the bearded leader. We need some answers. And we went out and we found this charismatic, phenomenal gentleman, fun to talk to. And we just met him and we're already saying, hey, man, let's hang out. So I got to tell you, this is pretty cool. His name is Matt Stewart. He likes to go by the bearded leader. As every show, we come up with our own little Canadianisms. So we want to keep our guests sharp. So we're going to call him the bewhiskered one. So that's our little Canadian name. And Matt Stewart, to see what he has to say about the state of entrepreneurs, small business, tourism industry is really going to be interesting.
Yes, I can't wait to hear.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about our guest tonight before we bring him on the show. Matt Stewart is a 3-time TEDx Talk speaker. He's a success coach, leadership facilitator, author, community builder, and TEDx speaker, as I mentioned earlier. He is also a community cultivator. He likes to call it a den mother, which I would like to hear a little bit more about that, and executive coach to entrepreneurs. Here's what you said in our when we were sitting around the campfire in the green room having some screech, we brought up the yes and of Matt Stewart. And he has a yes and approach, has been developed over the past 20 years of his experience while coaching, collaborating, and advising senior leaders across North America. And these senior leaders, this ain't no roadside French fry stand. These are big names here. This guy has been working the work, making the connections, and doing good for Canadians in a variety of industries, including healthcare, global finance, major international sporting events, including, and I know he's going to bring it up,
who wouldn't?
The Olympics, Paralympics, Pan Am Games. And he does he dabbles in some content creation, which I really like to hear more about that. Matt is an executive director of the not-for-profit Okanagan Society of Independent Filmmakers, OSIF, for you people who like to talk code. He is a winner of the top 40 of 40. He has spoken, and I'm going to say this over and over all night until you guys get it. This guy knows his stuff. He's been at 3 different TEDx talks. So what? Here's the deal. We'd like you all, as we always do, to give out a loud and boisterous virtual hands together. Wag our beards in honor of Matt Stewart. Shake some hair if you don't have a beard. And give Mr. Stewart a big maple leaf round of applause. And here we will bring him on. And there he is, Mr. Matt Stewart.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Welcome. Cheers, Matt. And how is the bearded leader today?
Let me tell you, something fierce. Greg and Colin, I want to thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you. And I'm just so humbled that you asked me to come on. And I have to give a shout out. I see in the chat, Gary, big shout out to Gary in the chat who's joined us as well, who said hi. So I have to definitely give him a shout out as well. Don't know him, but big cheers to Gary in the chat.
Excellent. The nice thing about this show is we get a lot of views, but you know what? A lot of people are shy, and that's okay with that. But Carrie's a regular viewer, so awesome. Carrie.
Hey,
she's
Carrie.
from Calgary, and she comes on every week, and we're glad to have her here to come on every week.
Awesome.
So Matt, let's get right to it, because we're gonna pick that brain of yours.
Okay.
And you know what? we ask the tough questions here at a Canada Talk Show. Yes, we do. We're tough investigative reporting. So, Matt, we learned that you originally came from Hamilton, Ontario, which is a story in itself. And now you're living in the beautiful Okanagan Valley for, I'm guessing, around, you're going on 5+ years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So could you share with our audience, maybe fill them in if they don't know the bearded leader, and tell us a little bit about who is Matt Stewart?
Sure. Okay. So Matt, just simple guy with beard and tattoos, living the life out here in the Okanagan. Absolutely just blessed with the life I have. I've got an opportunity to do some pretty amazing things. When I look back over I don't want to give away my age, but giving, the back over how many years I've been around on this beautiful planet, spinning around the sun, I have an amazing opportunity to do some amazing things. Traveling across this country, just like you've done, has been probably the biggest highlight for me. As well, I had a great opportunity to live in New York City, lived in Tokyo for 2 years, lived in Australia.
Wow.
And what I love about that is now to be able to come home, I really appreciate the blessings that we have here in this country. So I am someone who's battling cancer. I have an incurable form of leukemia, which is part of my story of why I left living downtown Toronto, living in Ontario, and we wanted to come back to the mountains and just really live more of a simple life. But since then, of course, it hasn't been simple. So after I was diagnosed, one of the things I love sharing is, I went to that dark place. You were talking about no excuses and, yes, and because what do you do when someone tells you, you've got cancer, and guess, by the way, sir, there's no cure for it. There's no curative therapies. What do you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. I went and, being a true Canuck, I went and grabbed. I walked out of the hospital at Princess Margaret, downtown Toronto. Went into a back alley. I bought a large, not a small, but a large bag of ketchup flavored Doritos. And I downed that bag because I was like, what does it matter, right? Does it really matter?
Yeah.
And I downed that whole bag. And I remember going back home and I was like, well, what do I do? Do I even go to work, right? Like what's the point? What's the purpose?
Wow. Yeah.
And I started watching because we had this channel on the TV, and I was just flipping, what are you going to do when you're not working, right?
Yeah.
And I binged for weeks on end this channel called TED. I'd never heard of it before. And I was like, damn it. One day before I leave this earth, I'm going to stand on that red dot.
Nice.
And I did it. But you know what, though? Here's the thing. And this is what I love about entrepreneurs, because the ability to have grit and resilience. Do you know how many TED I applied to? 242. Before I got my first acceptance letter from a university in South Carolina, and they flew me down there, and it was the best experience. So I was like, I got to do this again. They flew me the next time to The Hague in the Netherlands. So I got to go to Europe on someone else's dime and give a TED talk. And then the most recent one was awesome. I got to go down to Florida, where I have family in Florida. And of course, being a true, from Ontario, my family all from Hamilton, they all came down to Cocoa Beach, Florida, and got to do a TEDx there. So it just was an amazing opportunity, not so much about the TEDx's, but for me to be able to go and say, hey, there was something I wanted to do. It was going to be difficult. Public speaking is not the easiest thing. I mean, you guys are talented individuals at it, but it was something I was like, you know what, before, if I have to leave, I wanted to make sure that I got that off the bucket list. And so that I was just so blessed to be able to do that. And now I get to live in one of the most beautiful places in Canada, and I think in the world. If you haven't been to the Okanagan, it is something fierce. And every day I get to, look out in the mountains on my drive to work now. And, even like coming down through the mountains and through the clouds to be able to get into the city, you didn't get that in Hamilton. So.
Yeah, but you did get beautiful waterfalls in Hamilton.
You know what? It's funny. Most people say Hamilton is so dirty, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. It has the most beautiful waterfalls.
Yes, it does.
In the world. And I lived, and it's funny, as a kid growing up, I never appreciated it until
you
move away, and I'm like, great, this is actually beautiful here. When you go into Dundas, and you go into the valley in Dundas, and it's like, but it's the same thing, driving across Canada, where of the Moraine Lakes and the Lake Louises of the world, but it's those little other smaller spots
Yep.
that maybe don't make it into, the Lonely Planet or some travel guide, but where they go, hey, there's some amazing little places that,
Yep.
if you weren't a local, you wouldn't know about. And growing up, I grew up in Ancaster, just outside of Hamilton, and there's the old mill, and just down past the old mill restaurant is this beautiful falls there, and nobody knows about it. Nobody goes there.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone goes to like Niagara Falls or to Webster's Falls and Dundas, but this falls just down the street, and people would drive by it all the time and never know it was there.
No.
And it was like the first place I ever got my very first kiss was there at those waterfalls. And for me, it's just,
Yeah.
One
of the nice things about that whole area is, one is you got the Niagara Escarpment, and there's waterfalls like almost every 100 foot along that puppy, and that thing's huge. That goes all the way down to Niagara from Bruce Trail, and then just up the street you've got that Bruce Peninsula National Park, I think. Yeah, Bruce Peninsula, Bruce Trail. That thing is miraculously gorgeous.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we're very fortunate in this country where we have, and I think you hit it on the nose, is that if we just take the blinders off, all of us live in a beautiful area, and put a 200-kilometer circle around where you live and explore it, and you'd be amazed what you're finding.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. We've always promoted get off the beaten path and take the road less traveled. I mean,
and
experiment and adventure.
And that's one of the things where, all of these high-end travel magazines, they're pointing everyone to the same spot, and that's why we have over tourism. That's why we're funneling them into one location, and that's why we deal with over tourism.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, you describe yourself as a community cultivator and a den mother, and I had to ask that. An executive coach to entrepreneurs. Our question is this: as an executive coach to entrepreneurs, what do you hope? If you were to narrow it down, Matt, what would you hope entrepreneurs? What's the big takeaway when they're working with you?
The biggest one, and this, it's not just for like entrepreneurs, but I think I've worked a lot with tech entrepreneurs, and they have a bit of a reputation that sometimes gets well earned. But this applies to anybody in any industry, whether it's healthcare or banking or retail. It doesn't matter. I see this all the time with leaders, is a lack of humility and appreciation. And one of the things in my coaching practice, I always push with any entrepreneur, that's why I like to think of myself as a bit of a den mother, is sometimes people need some fierce feedback. The openness to receive feedback as a gift. And when I look at whether it's tech companies or any companies that really have failed to pivot or have failed to really adapt to the changing needs of whatever it is, if their customer base has changed, is this ability to really be humble and learn to be appreciative and to listen. And I think those are key things that when you look at those companies and those entrepreneurs who are able to succeed, that humility, I think, is a quality that often gets mislooked. They always talk about grind and hard work. Yes, you can grind and get hard work, but guess what? That's not always going to win the day, especially long term.
I think you hit it on the nose there.
Yeah. You know it.
I mean,
you know it.
Go ahead, egos and that sort of thing have a little bit too. People just don't listen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe in it too. Maybe people lose sight of how they got there because no one does it by themselves.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. And you'll see this in with not just entrepreneurs again, but a lot of folks, but especially in entrepreneurs, is they're brilliant individuals who obviously had a great idea that at one point really hit. But they needed operations. They needed all these other key pieces in order for them to be successful. And it wasn't just them. And that lack of appreciation, that lack of ability to really listen and understand that, the village that comes together to really support those individuals, that if you lose that, then you get into, where you're not going to be as successful or not necessarily sustainable either.
Yeah, no, very valid points, Junior.
Oh, yes, that same thing with, like you say, the village analogy. Same thing with bring up a child. I mean, you need a village to bring up a child, and same thing, they bring up a business. I guess that's a different type of child.
Bring up a brother.
Bring up a brother. Yeah, well, we're fortunate to have, I'm very fortunate to have my big brother below me now.
Yeah.
To to keep each other straight. I mean, being brothers, we have no problem with attacking each other's, when they do something wrong, and we try not to let the egos and the.
We're also each other's biggest fan too.
Yes,
that's
yes,
awesome.
sure.
That's important.
Right.
I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it without him, and he couldn't do it without me, or maybe he could.
No, I wouldn't have a chance, man. So COVID has devastated local economies, and we're just going on our 50th show next week. So a lot of our guests we've had very, very, very knowledgeable strategists, futurists, professors, bearded leaders. They're all bringing a ton of insight to the program. We get a lot of positive feedback from the people who view it tomorrow when it goes on throughout all our social media, or tonight. One of the things, though, even though COVID has pretty much devastated many small communities, and we really noticed this on our road trip to the Yukon, how can your services, Matt, bearded wise one, how can your services and skill sets assist an industry like tourism?
Oh, that's a great question. If I can just share the quickest stories.
Yes, please.
Is the ability to understand and to pivot, right? The analogy I always like to use when I was fishing with my dad was, if no one's biting right now, maybe now isn't the time to fish. Or maybe we need to go to a different part of the lake and maybe try something else. Maybe try a different lure, try a different bait, right?
Yeah.
We need to do something different. We have to be able to pivot. And I had this wonderful opportunity to go, TOTA, the Thompson Tourism Association, is doing this wonderful program now to help retrain. They brought in a beautiful professor, Sean, who is an entrepreneur professor from UVic and Royal Roads University. But he's been working with these entrepreneurs in the tourism industry who need to pivot. And there's this beautiful one young gentleman who was like, yeah, I need to do something different, right? Because he probably isn't going to be able to go back to what he was doing. He was also someone who is differently abled. So I don't want to say disabled, because I know that's probably not the right word to use, but for lack of a better use of a word, he was disabled. But he was building out now where to get resources that talk around, touring around Canada, from someone from that perspective, because I'm an able-bodied, cisgendered white male, so I'm going to look at things from my viewpoint, and most of the stuff, unfortunately, is going to be written in my viewpoint and my voice. So for someone like him, where it is a different viewpoint, he's going to look at things differently, and so I'm going to wish him all the best of luck. But what I love about it is he didn't just sit back and go, "Woe is me." He goes, "Okay, now what? Well, I'm going to have to do something different. What do I know? Well, I know when I go to the wineries in Kelowna that they're not built for someone in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
They're not built for someone who's blind." And I'm like, you're right. I never think of someone who's visually impaired probably still wants to get out into nature and enjoy this beautiful country. They're going to have to do it differently. Mm-hmm. But how can we enable and put systems in place that are going to empower someone who is differently abled than me to be able to get out and enjoy this beautiful country as well? So kudos to him for looking at a need, and he was like, nobody's doing it.
Nope.
And he's stepping up to the plate, and I'm going to wish him the best of luck, because that to me is the right mindset to be successful in this ever-changing world where every morning I'm like, okay, so now what? What are we going to do? Well, we can make excuses and we can complain about it, or we can take that mindset and go, yes, that's happened, but here's what we're going to do. Exactly. Let's pivot, right? Yeah. And that's for me what I did. I looked at it and I said, I can sit here and eat ketchup flavored Doritos for the rest of my life and just watch TV. Or you know what? I'm going to be around here for maybe a bit longer. Well, I'm in extra time. Yep. Let's make the most use of this overtime that I'm playing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Explore, adventure, meet new people, challenge yourself, all of that good stuff. I agree. So if you were to say you were to meet this gentleman that you used that has pivoted and has come up with his new niche in tourism, what advice would you give him moving forward?
Is to listen, reach out to as many people as possible. I see this all the time where people think they have a great idea, and you know what? It probably is a great idea. But what we know, and I'm especially working with tech entrepreneurs for so many years now, is you need to validate. It may make the most sense to you, but if nobody's willing to buy it, if no one's willing, if it's not an idea that anyone else buys into yet, then maybe we need to pivot, or we need to adjust, or we need to look at how else we can support that industry. But I think that ability to really understand who your customer is and to listen, that would be the biggest advice I would give them, because oftentimes people are like, I have this great idea and I'm going to run, but then are you running in the right direction?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like you can get, like I just think of, traveling out in Kananaskis growing Banff, and, I'd always have a map. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow the map. Entrepreneurs, guess what? You don't get the luxury of having a map when you are disrupting an industry or you are creating something brand new. So without that map, you know what? You're going to have to listen to the sound of the creek, or listen to, what's happening in the environment around you to be able to successfully navigate. So I hate to use that analogy of hiking, but it's hiking without a map. And that's what entrepreneurs have to do, and it involves the use of all the senses to be able to do that successfully.
Yep, and the circle of influence is like your search and rescue team.
Yeah, right. Yes,
right. Our friend Camacho is in from Peru. Hello, Camacho.
Hello.
Carrie and Tanya, our regular viewers, are also tuning in. And I know, based on history, there's about 400 of you out there that are just zipping it up and enjoying the show. And that's just how we like it, because me, Colin, and our bearded leader here, we've got plenty to say, and we have no problem talking. Right, Junior?
Oh, we'll go on forever there if we if they let us, for sure.
So guess what? You know how we have our little mantras and our little Canadianisms, Colin, and we love throwing people off with photologists and birdologists and all our makeup Canadianisms, because I think it's fun and I don't care what people think. And this is one of the things that our friend here, Matt, his mantra is yes and. And the other one that I found when I was looking through all his wonderful information was no excuses. Now what? Has been a lesson he has developed over 20 years. No excuses. Now what? I mean, isn't that a beautiful 4 words, really, to sum everything up, right? So maybe, Matt, explain to us this 20-year research on the yes and no excuses, now what mantra.
I had the great pleasure of starting my career in healthcare. And it's funny now that we're dealing with a pandemic, because back in 2003, I was on the front lines at Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto when SARS hit, or COVID 02, I guess, right? Yeah. And, there's folks that were in the ICU, nurses that I'd worked with, and, they kept saying, okay, well, now what, right? And they didn't, unfortunately, make it. And it was such a lesson learned, because we really had to go, okay, so now what? We can't sit here and just be like, okay, this is a horrible situation. We had to do something, right?
Yeah.
And compare that to now, it's exponentially worse. But it really hit home, because I then went on to go work in many different industries. I worked on the Vancouver Olympics, and hopefully we did Canada proud and touched the soul of a nation. But I think of, the opening ceremonies. If you remember the opening ceremonies, we had a oh crap moment when Katrina Blamé-Doan, one of our gold medalists, went to go light the cauldron, and what happened? Her arm didn't come up, right? And we could, and mind you, there was some swearing going on in the back of the scenes when we were doing that. But at the end of the day, what did we do? As true Canadians, we made fun of it in the closing ceremonies, right? We're like, now what, right? So you can always have, and you always will have stuff that will happen to you. Yeah. Right. But at the end of the day, it's how you frame it.
Yep.
It will impact the behaviors and what you do after that happened. Right. I also taught, post-secondary for years, and I always would get a ton of excuses about their homework or excuses. And that's where I would just get sick and tired of it. Cause I'm like, you're talking to someone with incurable cancer. Like I'm not. Okay. So I don't care about the story. Now what? Yeah. What are you going to do, right? So your dog ate your homework, right? Or, woe is me. Okay, so now what are you going to do about it? Because guess what? You're going to graduate in a year or 6 months. You're going to be out in the real world, and no one's going to want to listen to your excuse.
Nope.
They're just going to want to know, okay, what are you going to do about it? What's happening now? Focus on that. And you're going to be super successful. If you stay mirrored in the, oh, woe is me, I've got incurable cancer, you're not going to go anywhere, right? And everyone's going to have that moment where, what am I going to do? This is one of the worst things that could happen. Well, yes, it probably is. It's a horrible thing. Now, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I like it.
And you got to focus on that. So instead of just saying, well, this happened to me, say yes and. And I learned that from improv. So I got to work with a lot of fabulous actors. You know, people always say, Matt, go do improv. And I got to do some improv actually at Hamilton, at Theatre Aquarius in Hamilton, when I was growing up and going through high school. And the acting instructor always said, if you're on stage, things are going to happen. Set's going to fall down. Something's going to happen. And as an actor, you just have to say yes and. Because you can't control the uncontrollable, but what you can control is your reaction. So if you're on stage or in life, you have to say, yes, that happened, and here's what's going to happen next, right? And if you think of all the great improv actors and actresses, what do they do well? They do yes and, right? They just go with it, right? And that lesson from improv works in any industry, because you say yes and, what are we going to do about it? But if you have that mindset, and I think this is probably the biggest thing for everyone right now, is you have to check your mindset, check yourself, and go, okay, now what? And what are we going to do about it?
And just so you anxious listeners know, if we lose connection, now what?
Right? We'll have fun.
Well,
yes.
So
Colin will take us off on a song and dance afterwards until you come back.
Exactly. He'll pull off his singing in the shower scene or something. I don't know. The beautiful thing. Go ahead, Junior.
I was going to go, in my experience, our experience, that makes it a more memorable when things go wrong. I mean, it makes it more memorable. It makes, especially how you react to it, like you're saying, like especially like our adventures on the road. When you have things that go wrong, you get a flat tire, or deer runs out or something.
Transmission falls out.
Transmission falls out or something. Those are the ones you remember.
And the thing is and again, Matt, you can tell us a bit better because this is your wheelhouse. But I always find when you look back on these instances where you thought your world was falling apart, it wasn't that bad. And actually, what actually came out of it are some pretty cool things that you did not see coming. It might have came 6 months later, it might have came 8 months later, but it was a result of a decision you made back then. I mean, there's always a good in everything. You gotta focus on that.
It's funny. Can I share a quick story?
Oh, you can do it's your show, buddy.
Here's the thing. So, no, but it's just a quick, but talking about the TED stories, and it's funny enough because I've got the picture, and that's what triggered me when I looked at it. So when I got the call to go, hey, you're going to get down, we're going to fly you out to this university in South Carolina and give a TED talk. I'm so excited. So the day comes where I'm going to get on the plane. And of course, there's a massive snowstorm in New York City. What that meant was all the flights to Kelowna were canceled, right? And so I got rerouted, and I was supposed to go Kelowna to Calgary. I ended up going Kelowna to Vancouver for some reason. And then as we get to Vancouver, they decided that, the engine needs to be fixed, and we need to drain all the gas. And I'm like, I have a short time. I'm going the opposite direction from the East Coast, and now I'm in Vancouver. And then I got rerouted to Chicago, and it's 1 a.m. the night before. And I'm like, am I going to make it down to South Carolina? Because trying to find flights and everything. But you know what happened? When sitting in the airport in Vancouver, I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about this. I ended up befriending half the people in the terminal, got to hang out with the flight attendants. And I actually ended up giving that TED talk in Vancouver airport at the gate to everyone.
No way.
And it was awesome. It was such an amazing experience. And at the end of the day, you know what? I ended up making it to South Carolina with a few hours to spare. And it was a great experience. But, I could have sat there and fretted, Or I was like, you know what? Why not make a great experience? And not only did I make some great friends down in South Carolina and had grits for the first time,
Yep.
I got to meet some amazing people at
Yeah.
both Vancouver and in Chicago airport. And even the ladies at the Chicago, they were like, 1 a.m. They're like, why are you so happy? And they're like, oh, you're Canadian. I'm like, but you know what? I'm having the time of my life. I don't care. Hopefully I make it there. If I don't, you know what? This was a fun journey, and I'm just going to enjoy it. But I got to travel to all these different airports that I wasn't initially booked on, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you know what, I was just going to enjoy the time that I had.
Exactly.
And I ended up making some great friends that I'm now friends with on Facebook. And where did I meet them? At a terminal, because I was rerouted to the wrong airport. And you know what? We just had a great story and great laughs to share. Right.
That's a perfect example of something where, and look at, we're on this show and you're bringing it up. There's a situation that a lot of people are stressed out about, but now it's turned into a great story to share on a show like this. From something that was a lot of people would not handle properly. And then now we've got a story that we're all bragging about. I mean, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You just can't predict life.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, whether it's an hour or a day or a week, I mean, you just gotta. I mean, I believe the universe is gonna bring to you what, you have to have your eyes open to see what's happening and take advantage of the opportunities and just go with the flow. Carp DM, was it that our last week's fabulous guest was?
I guess so. I don't know. You're very philosophical. You're very philosophical tonight, Colin.
Oh, well, Matt's inspiring.
Oh, there you go. There you go, Matt. Look at the effect you're having on the brothers.
I love it.
I mean, it's all in the attitude. And
that's it.
Yeah.
Hey, so Matt, you went from a coaching practice in Canada's Financial Capital District in Ontario, if I'm correct, right? And then you decided, okay, time for a change. You packed up and you came over to the West. And now you're an executive director of the Okanagan Society of Independent Filmmakers. I love this. OSIF for all of you people who love code. Maybe I really like our viewers to know a lot more, but we could tease them a bit, and then they could come on your web, on all your feeds that we've been sharing, your email, and they can ask you questions there. And please, people, write these down. We've been sharing them crazy. Tell us a little bit about the Okanagan Society of Independent Filmmakers.
Well, yeah, so OSIF is it's an amazing society, but its focus is how do we support, incubate local filmmakers. The film industry, and this goes for any industry, and not just the Okanagan, but any smaller community that's close to bigger communities like Vancouver and Calgary and Edmonton and Toronto, where the bulk of a lot of work happens, is you get brain drain, right? So we have all these beautiful people who, were born and raised in the Okanagan, or came here, and, they got the great opportunity to work on some major films. And then what ends up happening is all the work, if you really want to get paid, is in Vancouver, or it's in Winnipeg or Calgary, or you got to go to Toronto or LA. And so for years, the Okanagan would get some wonderful films, like Nick Cage would come up and he would do a film here, or, there'd be some, but then there'd be no work for 8 months of the year. Right. And so my husband, he was working in the film industry, and it was great. But then if he really wanted to be successful, he would have had to have gone back to Vancouver. And we might have to go back to Vancouver. So OSIF was put out a call for an executive director. And I was like, you know what? I want to help build something here, build more community, especially around the digital storytelling, the filmmaking community. And now so it's really, the groundswell is built up. And now we're, of course, seeing more opportunities here in the Okanagan with films coming in. But it's not just the big budget films. Where we're going to see the success, and where we are seeing the best success, is these, when I call them smaller players, people who aren't on the big budget films, but they are creating magic.
I love it.
In their little smaller budget films. And it's excellent. It's brilliant. We have some amazing, talented individuals, but we had to help incubate and support and create a supportive community that could help them develop. And to the point now where we have filmmakers that are not only born and raised here, but can film here and get their films shown all over the world at different film festivals. And that is that's really the impetus for what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
and to bring this community together. I myself don't even have a film background,
Mhm.
but it was this ability to bring community together. So after working, in the Olympics and the Pan Am Games, it takes a village, a large village. I mean, it was 56,000 people that we needed as an army to put on the Vancouver Olympics, and we were the smallest in terms of size and budget, but it was a lot of people to be able to do that. And it's not one person or one team. It's a lot of folks. And it's the same thing for any industry. And so I do a lot of work with the Economic Commission here in the Okanagan, Okanagan Young Professionals, where let's not lose the talent that we have here to the bigger cities. Let's develop and incubate an ecosystem that can really support them so they don't have to go to a bigger city. And of course, now COVID's one of the beautiful things about this is now people can actually come here because they don't have to go to an office to work anymore. So that completely disrupted everything. We just have to pivot.
Yeah, we do.
Right. And really, how do we support, when I think of these young and maybe not so young, because I've got a little gray in my beard, how do we support each other so that we can do beautiful things where we are? So whether that's here or whether that's in Regina or in Hamilton, can we take these models of community support to really incubate some beautiful opportunity for storytellers? So I think of our First Nations community. How can we support so that they can tell their stories from their perspectives, and it's not me coming in to tell their story, but it's them telling their story from their perspectives, or the LGBT community or the Black community. What can we do that really empowers? And so the storytellers are the individuals who are truly have the great stories to tell. And if we can do that, OSIF is going to be success. And we're seeing similar societies all throughout Canada now that are just doing a brilliant job of incubating talent so that it stays local and it can tell that local story. And I think that is just so powerful.
Yep. And the film industry is a big part of the tourism industry. It creates a ton of money for communities. It creates a lot of jobs. And I don't think people fully understand how much importance it is to make Canadian product, film Canadian product, and have Canadian people make that Canadian product. Just like our friend here, studio developers too. Yes, small budget films need a lot of people working together really well. So kudos to you, studio developer. Obviously works in the small film industry, and all the power to you. And if there's anything the crazy Canuck brothers of tourism can do to help that film industry, you know how to get a hold of us, Mr. Matt Stewart, and we'll be in like Flint, because that's what we do. We're Flint inners, right, Cole?
I love it.
Another new word.
Yeah,
we're 100% in there.
You get a lot of that on this show.
I love it.
Right?
And it's good to see the supporting the little guy. I mean, that's it. There's so much creativity out there. That's a lot of the industry now seems to be, corporate and poster child, or you don't get the creativity that you do from the.
And look at all the indie films winning awards now, where they didn't even have a chance before, and now they're starting to figure out, hey man, these small studios, these small film productions with this local talent, they're banging it out of the park.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to see Ghostbusters #5. I want to see, the real people, which surprisingly is similar to what we do, in a way that, we get the local community to tell their story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our friend here, Studio Developers, is viewing from California. How are you in beautiful California? Thanks for coming on the show. I hope we're not too Canadian for you, but if we are, you're going to have to stick with it, because that's what we do here. So, Matt, what would you like to see as a positive change in tourism and the society due to COVID-19? What are the little flies on the wall telling you, and how are you breaking it all down, and where are you seeing, if any, and I know there is, positive change?
Oh, I think right now is, in terms of positive change, how many people I speak to that are now reevaluating what's important to them. Right. And to me, if unfortunately, if it had to take something crazy like this for a reset to happen, it's sad that happened. But at the end of the day, it's really reevaluating what's important. Like for me, it took an incurable diagnosis of cancer to really go, okay, do I really want to go and sit down on Bay Street working with multi-billion-dollar deals, that at the end of the day, what's the actual impact that I'm having to the community I'm serving, right?
I love it.
And I'm seeing more and more people, and I think coming out of this now, we're going to appreciate those little smaller things. I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd sit here and go, I really can't wait to the day I can just go hang out with some friends. We'll just have a beer on the patio. And like that, why is that something that is it? But like before this, I took that for granted. I took game night for granted. You know what I miss? Simple things like, let's have a RuPaul's Drag Race and we're going to all get together and watch the final episode together. Things that we never were able to do before, where we just took for granted before. Now it's harder to do. And so when things do happen, I hope we never lose that appreciation appreciative inquiry for what we're able to do, and finding ways that we can still stay, creatively connected. I think that I'm really, really encouraged to see ways that people are able to do that. So again, one of the beautiful things that OSIF did is really help support the local hospices and be able to connect via video for those people who needed to say their final goodbyes, but couldn't get people to come in because of COVID, right? So there's ways that we could make an impact on people's lives that we never would have connected that this was a need, right? And I think that this is now, really forced so many people not only to be more appreciative, but also to go, okay, there's different needs now that we can solve for. And I think people are going to be far more open to, okay, let's just go and solve these needs quicker, faster. And we're going to have to adapt, right? So
one of the guests, Colin, I don't know if it was Jed at Low Season in UK. He was saying one of the things that he's really impressed about, and I think Matt, you're touching on this as well, is that the entrepreneurial mindset is really coming to the forefront right now, opposed to the corporate mindset, which has sort of gone into a shell, like ghost. They've gone ghost, and now you're seeing all these entrepreneurs come out with all of these big risks and big ideas and big things and big concepts. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch this innovation and the initiatives that's happening right now.
And the change that takes place in the actual entrepreneur too, to see them change their lives and towards a direction where their passion brings them, as opposed to the direction that the paycheck brought them earlier.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, perfect example. So here in West Kelowna, there's this beautiful little pizza place that, they wouldn't have any income coming in. You know what they did? They have a patio, which, okay, maybe gets 2 or 3 people on there. They went and they're like, we're going to innovate. And they built at the side of their patio a drive-through window. So you literally have this drive-through pizza place. Like I think McDonald's had that back in in the 90s, right? But like, where would you go through drive-through pizza? But they're trying different things. They're open to trying, and that's what I think any entrepreneur, especially in the tourism, is going to have to do, right? To stay relevant and look at what do I need to do to not only to be relevant, but to thrive.
Yeah.
The old cliche of thinking out of the box.
Yeah. Yep. Let's crush that box. It doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Get those walls down, man. Let's go for it. This is a good opportunity to experiment. I read in an article, and I read a lot of that's the good thing about this show, is I get to read about all these fascinating people. And I get to follow and read their websites page to page, and I get to find news articles, and I find out all this beautiful information, and I get to re-bring it up to the surface. If it was an article 6 months ago, I get to re-bring it like Mr. Top 40 of 40 sitting here, Mr. Matt Stewart. We've got a lot of that. So I read this article, and in the article, and I think it was the Kelowna Now one, I think it was, you said you believe the Okanagan Valley is primed to become a big digital storytelling hub. So my question, Matt, why do you believe this, for one? And what do you mean by storytelling hub? Because that's a big thing.
Well, I think now more than ever, local and the stories of local matter, right? And the pre-COVID, it was always, we looked at the national story, or, being in a smaller community like the Okanagan. What did we hear? We only heard about what was happening in the major metropolitan cities, New York, Toronto, LA. But now people really are craving for what is those local stories. And what I love about what we've done with OSIF is that this ability to enable that young individual who wants to tell the story of what's happening in their community, and they can do it bigger and better than the CBC and Global, right? They can do it bigger and better than others because they're doing different things and they're taking more risks. And so I think if we incubate that mindset, which we've been doing really well, and I think the Okanagan kind of works well because it's kind of like that Silicon Valley-esque mindset that you apply what they did in the tech industry to a film industry or to a storytelling. Because people think of film as it's just, you got to go to the movie theater. Well, you can't even go to the movie theater now.
Yeah.
So how are you telling stories? And now, how many people are viewing their stories on these devices, right? And they're adapting them. They're 10 seconds or less or 30 seconds or less doing on their TikTok and their Insta Reels and all these things that the kids are doing. But they're able to tell cohesive stories that we never saw before. So could you imagine individuals across this country telling the story of their local spot that nobody knows about, right? Or telling the story of that, crazy Fred who, all the locals know, but he has probably the best backstory in the world. But CBC isn't going to pick that up.
Nope.
Right? They're not going to be picked up in the Globe and Mail. But
they're not going to touch it.
But these individuals who've got the ability to edit and create something beautiful in the palm of their hand, completely democratized the whole ability to be able to tell a story. We ran a couple of film festivals, even during COVID. We ran these film festivals, and it was you had to film it on your phone. It had to be filmed, edited on your phone, and they were short, under 5 minutes, but they were cute. They were fun. Some were cheesy, some were but the gist was they were just, I can't say kids, they were under 40 and using what was in their hands, devices, and we gave them 48 hours and they were able to produce some of the best content I thought I've ever seen, right? And so that's when I say, Storytelling Hub is, it doesn't have to be a big budget film anymore. You can do some amazing storytelling with just what's any kid is going to have.
Yep. And I think the real beautiful thing, and I know from our industry, tourism has taken a big a mindset or a mind shift, and they've gone from what used to be very factual. This trail's 3 kilometers long. It has a washroom at the parking lot. You can park 20. There's a northeast trailhead, southeast. Now what's happening is statistics and white papers and our circle of influence of people are basically saying right now the only thing that people care about are stories and experiences, and they don't want to hear the facts and figures, the dry version. They want to hear about you stubbing your toe, and they want to hear how you sat on the bench on the peak and took some beautiful pictures, and you had your Gatorade, and you took out your Subway sandwich, and you enjoyed a breakfast with your or lunch with your. That's what they want to hear, and I agree with you. I think storytelling. And it sounds like, and from what I've seen, there's a whack of talent for you to work with. We just got to try and tap into it and find it.
Exactly. Right. And make people know that it's possible. I think that's a big part of what folks in my generation need to do is really say there's so much that, we don't have to do this 9-to-5 gig thing anymore where we go and work there for 40 years and then retire, where you can create and craft your own future, right? And if we can empower them to think like that, and then they're going to do it, like, to me, that we've completely changed a whole segment in how people are going to grow up and make an impact in the world.
Exactly. So Matt, before we let you go, is there anything else you would like to bring up? And I have a pretty good idea what it is, and I can't wait to hear it. But if there's something you want to share with our audience,
for sure, one of the things we're doing right now, as I've also all the different things I'm doing, is I've joined Vancouver 2030. So if you go to Vancouver2030.org, you can sort of get a sense. We want to bring the Olympics back to Canada. I was a big part in 2010. And to me, it was just beautiful to see when the country came together. We touched the soul of a nation, and it was like 4 years of hard work for me, but to accumulated in 2 weeks of, just beautiful opportunity, being down to, anyone who saw the images of downtown Vancouver, especially when Sydney got that goal, and like to be there. I've never been hugged by so many straight men in my life. It was so awesome. Like just seeing everyone go crazy. But like, it was just, I was just gonna say, so we want to be able to tap into that again. We think there's, a lot of great cities out there that can host an Olympics, but guess what? In Canada, we did some pretty awesome things. When you think of like what we did in Montreal, which, yes, we had overruns, but that was right after the Munich Olympics, and that was so crazy for those people who forget about that. In Calgary, I'll never forget Calgary. I was just a kid back then, and in Vancouver, we were able to do something special that brought people together. And 20 years later, we'd love to be able to do that again. And I think it would be, we've got the venues, we've got the people. Now it's just a matter of rinse and repeat. And so I'm working on the bid committee. So if anyone is interested, go to Vancouver2030.org, and you'll probably get an interview with me, because we're trying to build out a team now to put together a bid. We're up against Salt Lake City, Sapporo, and Barcelona. But I have a feeling Vancouver, we can do it. We can bring it back, and it'd be just so awesome. Anyway, that's what I'm working on now, and I can't wait to unleash the hounds, and let's get going on this.
And if
we got that address to show there, bro?
Yeah, it's on here. Studio developer put it up for us. Vancouver2030.org.
Awesome, thank you.
If anyone needs it, it's in the chat there, and we'll make sure we slap it up there on the versions that we put out tomorrow. So I got to tell you, Matt, it's been very enjoyable.
So awesome.
I had a really good time.
It's over already.
I know. I
was like, was this a 10-minute show?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, that's the beauty about having this show, is it's a great hour of conversation that feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and Matt's been an awesome guest. I mean, it's an honor to have you here, Matt.
Oh, it was an honor to be on the show. I really just so honored that you had me here. Thank you for everyone who's listening, and I hope we continue this conversation, and looking forward to watching your shows in the future too.
Excellent. And awesome. Drop us a line there, buddy, if you see any opportunity for us to sneak in and help you out.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you, Matt. Take care.
Big cheers. Bye, everyone.
Bye. So that was Mr. Matt Stewart, the bearded one, the unbewhiskered leader of entrepreneurship, and also part of the Vancouver2030.org bid. And we want to make sure we get up that there, because that is close to Matt Stewart's heart, that little project call.
I gotta say, Matt is all around good people there.
I like the dude. Yeah. I might even grow a beard.
Oh, really? Well, he did mention, he had a little bit of gray. I think he was, a little under exaggerating there, but it was awesome to have him on the show. Yep. And this Vancouver Olympic stuff seems,
I know, and I'm bringing him back up. Yeah, encore performance.
Oh, I love it.
What did you have to say, Matt? You got to go, right, buddy?
I've got to run. Guess where I'm going to run? We got a meeting with the Vancouver 2030 team. So I just wanted to again say thank you so much. It was a blessing to be on your show, and definitely we'll connect again. Awesome,
buddy. Good luck at your meeting.
Big cheers. Have fun.
You are, my friend.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye. So that was, again, Matt Stewart. And again, we've been putting up his Twitter, his LinkedIn, his Facebook feeds. We've been putting up his email. If you would like to get a hold of Matt, we have put up everything you need to do to tag into our guest, Mr. Bearded Leader, the unbristled, bald leader of beautifulness, Mr. Entrepreneur, Matt Stewart. Right? And as Matt likes to say, Colin, big cheers.
Big cheers. You betcha.
Right? So thank you again to Matt for coming on. And again, look up his social media. You can follow him on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We would like to say, Junior and I, thank you everybody for joining us tonight for our live celebration of Beards and Brains with Matt Stewart, discussing entrepreneurship, small business, and the tourism industry. We are the co-bros of the A Travel Talk Show. Greg and Junior, Colin, Gerard, better looking as ever. The brothers of Tourism, the co-bro founders of ehCanadaTravel.com, and the brains and brawn behind the ehCanada Marketing Group. Please support us by following. Please support us by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, social media page. And if you really want to score some points, then and you want to talk to myself or Junior, look us up on LinkedIn. And we're quite active there with our circle of influence. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We are very happy to have seen you here. You can also connect with us anytime you want. Tomorrow, you'll find this interview with Matt on our live travel feed on our ehCanada Travel website. You'll also see it at the end of the month on our award-winning blog. We encourage Canadians to reuse, recycle, rewatch this talk show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. PST on your Facebook and YouTube channels. It is important to recycle good Canadian content.
Yes. Share.
That's what we do. We deliver, right?
We deliver.
One final note. We like to put a call out there that everyone be aware when tourism does open up, that you look at where you're booking your accommodations and your tourism. 13 to 18% of every booking goes towards out of country into these big OTA companies, Booking.com, Hotel.com, Expedia. Be aware that we are throwing 18% of our tourism dollars into another country, another head office, and it's not ever coming back to Canada. So here's what I encourage you to do. Book directly with Canadian tourism websites, Canadian business websites. If you need to find them, you book directly through us. You could get a hold of our participating businesses and go directly to their website. Here's a little tip. Prices are cheaper when you go to the actual website. Okay. So you're not getting no deal on booking.com. You're actually throwing away 18% that used to fund your child's baseball team, used to help build the rink. It used to put a roof on the new adventure center. This is where that money has gone. So here's what we're insisting is book Canadian, book local, keep it within the country. We need every penny we can get to build this industry. Be smart and do a little bit of time and book directly with their websites. And if you need help, you go to ehCanadaTravel.com, because that's what we do. We direct you to their website because we know that's where you're going to pay a lot less. Okay. So our guest. Yep.
I was going to say, I mean, when you book direct, I mean, you get to meet the people, you get to find out a bit about the place too. It's not about, it's not just about being quick and 2 seconds to book your trip. I mean, find out where you're going, who you're staying with, and everybody's better off. Cut out the third party.
You know it. You know it, bro.
You know it. Keep the money in Canada.
Yes. So, as Matt Stewart would say, be kind, stay safe, and stay creatively connected. Peace out, Canada. Okay, Junior. Dazzle them with your brilliance about next week's show.
Oh, next week's show, Big 5-0 coming up there, bro. And we have a special show for all of you. We get to interview each other, I guess. We are talking about our last year and how great it's been, our great guests. And we want people to ask us the questions that they want to ask. This is a big opportunity to ask us what's up, and we'll discuss our past year and celebrate the success.
Also, the email, send your questions to us, talkshow@ehCanadaTravel.com. Right, Call?
I'm in, yeah, for sure. Is that the only way? You can send them through our Facebook page as well?
Yep. You can send them any way you want.
There you go.
Talkshow, ehCanadaTravel.com.
Peace out.